I have in the military exercises worked together with the Danish servicemen and women, and they have been always really professional and awesome. So we really appreciate the Danish armed forces taking part in joint exercises in Estonia. So thank you from our side as well. But I am an archaeologist. I specialize in metallurgy. I did my PhD on metalworking sites, more on smithies and casting sites, crucibles and casting molds. I've also worked on fortifications, so some hill forts that we have in North Estonia. We have excavated them and tried to reconstruct what the ancient fortifications would have looked like. If you're interested in iron smelting, I have made one video which has English subtitles, how to make bloomery iron. It is, I think, like 15 minutes long, which gives out the basic principles, what you should do. And I also sometimes like to participate in sword fighting tournaments. Here you see me fighting the best warrior in Estonia, and I have to admit I got my ass kicked in that fight. So I'm definitely not the best swordsman. But let's get to Saaremaa. Currently, I am being financed by the European Commission. I have a very good grant to study the Saaremaa find, and the project is called Brothers in Arms, Provenancing Metal War Gear from the first Viking raid to the east. And the first Viking raid is the aftermath we have found in Saaremaa. So a few facts. So far, all of the dates seem to be pointing to the middle of the 8th century AD. There are 2 clinker-built longships that were buried on dry land with 42 men inside the 2 ships. They were killed in a battle. We have numerous evidence for that. And the ships were used as like coffin to bury them with grave goods and sacrificed animals like dogs, hunting hogs, and some meat. And there is a good educated guess where they could have come from. So far, the finds and the isotope analysis and the ancient DNA analysis all point to that maybe they came from central Sweden, but this is certainly not for sure, and it isn't true for all of the men. So we're not really sure what is their origin. I will just show you where is firstly the island of Saaremaa. So this is the bigger one, the biggest island in Estonia. The red arrow points to the place called Saaremaa. So as you can see, this is a very narrow strip of land, and this part here used to be an island in the 8th century. So it was actually a strait where you could sail through. So that might mean that it's a good place for an ambush, where we have saga descriptions of ambushes. So this might be one of the reasons why it took place here. The boats were about 100 meters or a little bit even less from the coastline around 700 AD. And they were found accidentally while the road construction, there was like a light road being built, and the excavator driver recognized some bones and other finds and stopped digging. So luckily, the first ship wasn't completely destroyed. And so already with the first ship, it was a big thing. And then 4 years later, or actually even less, 2 years later, the other ship was discovered here with completely different construction. There was like an electrical cable being put here. So yeah, I was lucky. I took part in the excavation of the second ship. I didn't excavate the first one. So the first ship was already spectacular because it had 8 men in a ship, which is the largest number of individuals from one ship. The finds were some pieces of swords that were really in a bad shape, spearheads, knives, quite a lot of whalebone gaming pieces, and so on. And the ship itself looked like this. Only the rivets of the ship are preserved in the sand. All of the wood has decomposed. But otherwise, it was about like a 10-meter long ship. It's pretty big once you are actually inside a ship that is this long. The second ship was bigger. The ship itself was bigger. There were more men buried there. And the grave goods were also more elaborate. So there were close to, I don't know by heart what is the final number of swords, because many of the swords were broken into pieces and some of the finds have been scattered a little bit with the different trenches. But many of the swords were placed there for the individuals. You could see that this double-edged sword and this single-edged sword were placed for this one warrior, so you could connect them. The shields were more like a blanket, so not every warrior had their own personal shield. There weren't spearheads from the second ship, which is pretty interesting because we like to really emphasize the importance of spears in that time period, but for some reason they didn't put them there. There were a lot of gaming pieces, so it's the largest Knefatafel gaming piece find in the world because there were in several bags and altogether quite a lot of them. They were buried in quite a concentrated area in 4 layers. So there was, here you can see the first row of burials, and underneath it you see quite a lot of sand and these rocks they just took from the seashore. And then you see the second and the third row, and under them was the 4th row of burials as well. Here's a few photos of how it looked like. So from their position, it looks like all of the skeletons were placed in a concentrated area, and this area was covered with a small mound. Maybe another image you see. And here on the image on your left, you can see that some of the skeletons have been disturbed by a Soviet-era trench that just went through it. It's a miracle that so much has been preserved. The lowest layer of skeletons was placed crosswise, so they were placed between the beams of the ship. So otherwise, the second, third, and fourth layer were buried along the axis of the ship. We see quite a lot of injuries. We see arms chopped off with the sword. And we see head injuries. We see also arrowheads inside their bodies, and also in the wood of the ship. So we know that they're definitely they died in a battle. The ship itself is a very remarkable find because it's, if you think about the middle of the 8th century, this is a pretty early ship, and from the contour of the soil, we can see how the wood has decomposed. It had a keel, which would make it a very early sailing ship. The weaponry that was deposited with the warriors was also destroyed. Like the weapons themselves were killed as well. So, and the more elaborate the weapon, the more effort they put into breaking it into pieces. So here you see a double-edged sword broken into several pieces. Here you see single-edged swords that are actually in a better condition. Some of the swords were of really high status. For example, here you can see a sword that had a gold inlay with a wire. So this is the only one of this kind. I don't know any other examples from this time period. And this is actually, you are the first people to learn from it, aside from one person I've told today. There are now 2 individuals that have been found outside of the ships. So this is fresh news. The first individual is not fresh news because this is how, when we excavated it, it was a bit weird. He was found pretty high up, kind of confused the archaeologists, and it was thought that this individual, who was like 5 meters from the second ship, that maybe it's a Second World War burial, because he didn't have a sword. He did have a small knife with him, but this was mostly ignored by the archaeologists. So I dated this skeleton in December last year, and it turns out this is contemporary with the Saaremaa skeletons. Now, there's also a foot of a 44th individual found. I don't have a picture of the foot, but it was articulated, so it was chopped off while it was still attached to a living person or person with soft tissues, and then for some reason it was buried there, only the foot, and the dating of the foot is a bit strange. It is 8th and no, it was 9th and 10th century AD. So it is right now dated to the Viking Age, and it doesn't match the datings with the rest of the Saaremaa ship. I'm not really sure how to explain this, but it definitely creates some interesting questions. Maybe we should take another sample from the foot, try to date it again. Maybe there is something wrong with the first date, but we know that it isn't a Second World War foot. The problem is this land was used heavily during the battles in the Second World War, because it's a natural landscape feature. And so this is the first half about the site, and maybe if you have some questions, I could answer them now, and then I would talk more specifically about a few individuals and what I've seen from their source.
That's a really great idea. Thank you for this super interesting information, Ragnar, and we're really excited to be the first people to know about the second unshipped person.
Yes.
Så er der nogen, der har lyst til at lægge ud med spørgsmål?
Det vil jeg
Ja,
det vil, kan I høre? Ja.
Yep.
The second ship, how big was it in meters?
It was so the preserved part. I measured it myself. I remember it was 16.1 meters, but this is from the lowest level it was preserved. So it's basically until
Around
this
20 meters.
So it's 16 meters and 10 centimeters. So it should be if you add the
Kølen og and the front and rear.
It will be a little bit more. And we think that this rock actually it was a anchor stone because it had some grooves in it that could be used to tie the rope on it.
When you see the two ships together, it seems like it's the first one is a scout, and the second one is the main boat with the. You understand what I mean? If you go in and attack, and you send in the scouts first, light and spears and stuff like that, and then you have the second one with bows and arrows and guys with swords.
I mean, it is actually, if you start thinking about it, what really happened, then there have to be some things that, we know that there are, so I can jump to one slide. We know that there are 4 brothers buried there who were buried side by side.
Is that on the second ship?
Yes.
Okay.
Which means that the people who buried them knew that these were the 4 brothers. So because they were side by side. So, and if there had to be a pretty large force who was doing the fighting. Then you had the casualties of at least 42 who were buried in the ships. The overall army must have been much bigger, because otherwise it would be like a catastrophic defeat. If you come with 3 ships and you lose 2 ships of men. But in any case, it was a really, really bad day for the guys, because they were all in more closely or they were from the same clan, you could say, based on their DNA analysis. So some close relatives, but the other ones were not genetically too far away. So
same village.
Something like that. Although 4 of them have a different origin. Not the 4 brothers, or actually I don't know which ones they are, but 4 individuals based on the strontium isotopes, they come from somewhere else. So it could have been that they were, comprised of different people. Yeah. Any other questions? I can continue then. These are my questions. Christina, you're talking, but you're muted.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
I have so many questions, but I think I'll save some of them for another time. But since you seem to have an idea that they might originate from central Sweden, I'm very much thinking about all these ship burials from Vendel, because both boats and burials, they are my 2 favorite topics in archaeology, and so this is like both those together. It's so exciting. But I have been working a little bit with boat burials myself, and noticed that there seems in some cases to be sort of like possibly a ritual opening of the graves. There was some Swedish archaeologists that wrote about the Vendel graves, and also maybe or even the Oseberg grave, according to the stratigraphy, that the boats might have been sort of open for a while before they were covered. And I have some finds, but they are earlier. They're from around between 300 and 500 AD, where it seems like they have opened the boat graves at some point after the burial, and then they have, in some cases, added something to them. There's a boat grave in Poland where they have put also, there's like an extra leg from another individual. So it's like 3 legs in one grave. And I was just thinking about that foot, whether it might be, are there any sort of traces in the stratigraphy that could indicate that this foot could have been placed ritually afterwards, since this is something that people have been doing in other cases as well?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, the foot was found from a totally different area than this individual. So the foot, can you see my mouse?
Yeah.
So the foot was found from this square. And if you look at if you look at the soil here, it has about like 10 centimeters of this very not very rich humus layer, which you can't really grow agriculture there. These are usually these like pasture lands where you keep sheep, because nothing really grows there. A lot of juniper trees and bushes. So the stratigraphy is actually quite poor. We don't know anything about it's just there under the layer, and we won't know anything more about it now as well, because we have excavated it. So can't really tell much about that, but we will do a DNA analysis of the foot and see if we find any relatives from the ship from it, because that would show something that it must be connected with them. Or if it is not connected, maybe we will have some proof that it is the site where the battle took place. Because if somebody loses a foot, that's like a place where it could have been chopped off. Maybe there were some smaller earthworks they did. We don't know if they dragged the ship to the shore to actually take the battle on dry land, because we know this is a thing that sometimes they did, because you could make a small fortress if you tie the ships together. And so a lot of questions. I don't have all the answers for the questions. Yeah.
May I ask another question about the boats?
Yes.
You said it had a keel, so it was a sailboat.
Yes.
But we do have for like other boats that have something that looks like keels, but there's no evidence of sails. Do you think that this was actually a boat with a sail?
I mean, you could even say that you can have a sailing boat if it's a smaller one without the keel as well. So
Yeah.
it can, and the mast doesn't have to be something that's like super heavy. So I'm not really a ship expert, but the ship experts who have looked at it are thinking that they think it's a sailing ship, also because there are some extra large iron clamps in the middle of the ship. But I think the problem is that exactly the place where you should have the mast, this part was actually destroyed.
What a shame.
Yeah, with the ditch. So we don't know for sure. But anyway, the pieces, if they are mostly made out of wood, you wouldn't have them preserved anyway. So
no.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you have some specialists working with the boats and so on, trying to identify them and find more information about them. But as I can see them sort of from the pictures and the drawing, they seem also quite similar with some of the Vendel boat graves. Do you think it's possible to do a reconstruction? I mean, we can do so many things with 3D models today and so on to actually perhaps in the future create reconstructions of the boats.
They have done it for the first ship, and I'm not sure if a full reconstruction has been made about the second ship. I haven't seen it, but the rivet positions are measured, but they need to be corrected a little bit to make it symmetrical because it has. With the degradation, it has moved. They have moved a little bit.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, but it's definitely something that we will do. We also have some 3D models using photogrammetry, so this will also help. Yeah. I haven't been working on the Saaremaa ship for so it was excavated in 2012, and I only started working on it last year. So I did other stuff in the meantime. So there's still lots to do. Yeah.
And I think it would also be very interesting with some information about the provenience of the metals, both if there's anything preserved from the rivets, but of course also from the weapons. But I know that you're going to say something about that in the part. So I think Henrik has just one more question, and then I think we can move on to the next part.
When you see the distance between this island and Gotland, if you had ships on both islands, would you be able to control the sea, or is the distance too big?
Do you mean the distance between Gotland and Saaremaa, or do you mean the small island and Saaremaa? Which
I get between Saaremaa and I have a map right next to me. Saaremaa and Gotland, will you be able to control it, or is the distance too big if you have ships on both parts?
Well, Saaremaa was not empty, so there was a pretty strong maritime tradition in Estonian coastal regions. And I think this is part of the reason why the Viking Age looks different from the from the Vikings who went to the east and the Vikings who went to the west. So if on this picture you see Norwegians taking some nice golden objects from a monastery, then if you did the same thing on the island of Saaremaa, you would have ships coming back to your home village like a few months later. So you would have to negotiate some sort of a truce and actually have like a constructive relationship with the peoples living there, because they started going through the Russian rivers, started trading with the Islamic nations, and really profiting from there. But I think there was this there of course was conflict, but there is no evidence of Scandinavian colonies on the island of Saaremaa. It was probably a pretty strong power on its own. But they could have this could have been a failed taxation event. So if you go and you tax another tribe, then in those times you had to do it with an army at your back. If your army was not strong enough, the people would not pay you tax. And we have it from the Russian chronicle as well, when was it Ivan or one of the Kievan princes who went to this tribe, Trevliani tribe. He took the tax, moved on with his whole army, and then went back with a very small retinue saying, I changed my mind, I want more. And the local tribe killed him for that, because they had already paid the tax and the army wasn't there. So we might see some aftermath of some attempt to seize power, but it might have backfired, and so we don't really know what happened there. But now we get to the point where basically my project begins. So we do have some questions we hope to answer. So the question, where did they come from? Or more specifically, where did the iron come from? And the other question is, who killed them? Or more specifically, where did the iron come from for the arrowheads that were shot into their bodies and to the ships? And so this is my provenance project, where I try to answer some questions about, like, do we see the war being equipped with swords that come from the same source of iron, or do we see a lot of heterogeneity? Where did the boats, the iron for the boats came from? Because we have rivets, we can look at the provenance of that, or origin. This week we will probably know, or the next week, already the first results of the copper alloys. So this analysis is right now in the lab ongoing. So we will know more about the high status swords. And I have sampled the arrowheads. They are next to me. I'm at work right now, so we can look at the arrowheads. I won't go super deep into how we find it out, but basically what is important is that when you smelt iron, you will produce iron, but you will also produce slag, which is like this waste material. But this slag gets trapped inside the iron as well. And so you can make a really precise measurement of the small iron pockets inside the slag. You can study the slag pockets inside the iron, and you can compare it to the iron smelting sites we know. And so I do work a lot with, so this is the boxes, these are the Latvian iron smelting sites. And today, actually, I was sampling in Copenhagen, Danish and Swedish iron smelting sites from the Buchwald collection. And on the other side, we have the objects themselves that we need to investigate to find out the origin. This is so far my work with these slags. So I'm trying to create this view or a picture of the iron smelting sites. Try to sample as many as I can get my hands onto, which are also relevant to the provenance. It's not always easy to find slag samples. Not all of the areas have been investigated, or it's difficult to get the samples themselves. But we're doing pretty well. We have a large group of people from Finland, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Sweden, Norway, and Denmark to cooperate with. And I mentioned that there were 4 brothers. So there was this article already published in 2020, Population Genomics of the Viking World. And based on this analysis, we have the 4 brothers. So I'm going to look at the origin of the swords of the 4 brothers. All of them were quite young. They were either, mostly young adults. The first one, number 14 or N, had the most richly decorated sword. I remember when it started coming up, and when we excavated it, then this was the first time I had ever seen gold on an archaeological excavation. And I remember also that when we were excavating it, we were having a discussion that this is the highlight of our archaeology career. And, the rest will go downhill from here, because we're never going to excavate something so richly decorated, something so special. And it was true. This is, you can see that the sword parts were really destroyed. Here you can see the pommel. It had garnets as its eyes, and also on the ridge. It was gilded bronze, so it was fire gilded with mercury. And the same sword had these gold inlays on the blade as well, which were discovered by X-ray. Here is a really nice image of the same pommel made by Matt Bunker when he visited the Wrack Museum, and I'm just so amazed that he could do this through the exhibition glass window. So I was asking about his camera, like what did he make the picture with? But it is a great piece of work. It looks like it is one of the top quality artifacts you can own during that time period. So it's the Lamborghini of the time, or you could even call it, like, for some reason in some regions of the world, people cover their AKs with gold and gems. Maybe it's a similar thing sometimes people do. I don't know why people did it in the past, but at least here we see an evidence of it. So this is what the sword would have looked like. There is a cross-section of that sword blade, but I don't have it yet in my possession. So I can't talk about the metallography of that sword, but I have already taken the copper alloy sample. So we will actually know from what mine the copper come from to make this sword. I don't have the analysis yet, so this is what we're doing. The second brother next to him had a sword and a double-edged sword and a single-edged sword. Here we see a sword and it was in terrible condition. So I partnered up with our forensic institute. So they usually look at dead bodies. And so they were excited to have some early Viking artifacts instead of dead people in their lab. And you could really see some nice details. For example, this very corroded pommel. You could see like the rivet holes and, even say how it was destroyed and what type of pommel it was, although the ornament is pretty much corroded. And here's another copper alloy. It's like a mount or like a decorative rivet, and this is a part of the handle that was basically hammered flat, or not a handle but the hilt, the crossguard. And so why the computer tomography was really good was, if you look at this image, you can see how little of the actual iron was preserved. So I could really only sample the area where it was the best preserved, and it was a really good place. I had to put it into epoxy, but what we saw from the analysis was that it was made out of good quality steel. So this one wasn't pattern welded, but still a good sword. The third brother had this was the sword. The third brother had a sword which was probably in the worst condition if you look at the blade, but at the same time the hilt piece is just magnificent. If you look at it, it is not big, but the level of detail the 8th century craftsman could achieve is just something that, even the craftsmen today are looking at this and thinking like, I would really struggle to make a copy out of this. So this is a really nice one. Again, computer tomography helped me to find the best piece, and this was crucial because you can see my special method. My kids had to eat yogurt, and then into this yogurt cup I could cast epoxy. Then if it was already in epoxy, I could cut off a slice. Otherwise it would just break into pieces. So it's my yogurt cup method. But what we learned from it was that it is pattern welded. So most of the blade is just gone, but the part that is preserved shows a really nice iron steel, twisted into this nice pattern, forged together, and probably a really high quality sword, because in order to get this pattern, you would have to have good steel and low carbon iron. Otherwise, your pattern doesn't look good. So you will have to have access to very pure materials. And the fourth brother, his sword was pretty interesting because it had a wooden handle and like a cross guard, so something more reminiscent of maybe migration period swords, something like older. But the cross section also showed nice, good quality steel, and also not pattern welded, but a steel sword. So based on this first analysis we have done, we can say that every double-edged sword we have analyzed was made out of good quality material, either pattern welded or just steel. We do have these nice slag inclusions, so we can make the provenance analysis. We have the slag to analyze. If the material would be too clean and they had forged out all of the slag, then we couldn't find out where they come from, but we can do it. And yeah, the CT scanning is a really good method to, if you have objects that are in a really sad condition and you would have to find the best place to sample them if you want to do metallography. And yeah, this is from the 2012 excavation. It was outside of the ship, but here you can see that the different ditches that have went through the ship have carried the material from the ship all around it. And if you just if I went there tomorrow, I would know where to make the excavation. I would still find the stuff that was carried over to the sides of the ship, and there we found the whole sword just sticking out of the ground like Excalibur. Yeah, it was a real test of patience excavating it, because we were excavating it with 5 centimeter layers, and it took like a whole week to excavate this sword because we had to go with the whole excavation. But yeah, we got it out. Okay, so that's it from the research side. If you have some more questions, I can answer.